Should Christians be wealthy? A highly debated subject within the Christian community is whether we should be able to accumulate material wealth on earth. There are two main groups in the Christian community about this subject. Some Christians say we should be able to gain material wealth, as we have examples of people in the Bible that due to their obedience to God are blessed with material wealth, while the other group of Christians say we shouldn't be able to gain material wealth, as it usually causes us to put our trust in the world and it becomes a stumbling block for our relationship with God. So then, which answer does the Bible hold as true? The Bible does give us examples of God blessing the obedient and faithful with wealth. However, it also shows us that when used incorrectly, such wealth can have a negative effect on our relationship with God. The New Testament gives us several examples of how wealth can affect how we serve the kingdom of God. The first example is from the first epistle of Timothy, where Paul tells Timothy on chapter 6 verse 9, "But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into senseless and harmless desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through those cravings that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs." Another example is from the Gospel of Luke on chapters 12 verse 16 through 21. Where Jesus tells us a parable about a rich man who had an abundance of harvest. The rich man decided that instead of using that excess grain to help the Lord, he instead builds new barns to store this excess grain so that he may be able to live life merrily. Jesus says that because of his selfish heart to store up riches for himself and not to be rich towards God, his soul would be demanded from him that night. In several sections of the gospel, Jesus views material wealth as a barrier between a person serving his kingdom. As on Luke on chapter 18 verse 18 to 30, when the rich young ruler asked Jesus what must he do to inherit the kingdom of God, as he has kept all the commandments of the law from his youth, Jesus tells him, "One thing you still lack, sell all you have and distribute to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me." But when the young ruler heard these things, he became very sad, for he was extremely rich. Jesus, seeing that he had become sad, said, "How difficult is it for those who have wealth to enter the kingdom of God? For it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God." Jesus tells the disciples that earthly wealth is lower than that of heavenly wealth. As on Matthew chapter 6 verse 19, Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." For if we gather up earthly treasures, we put our trust in the world. But if we gather up heavenly treasures, we put our trust in God. As Jesus says, "Where your treasure is, your heart is." So then, how should we as Christians deal with wealth? The Bible shows us that we should be content with what we have and not want more than what we need in order to support ourselves. As Hebrews on chapter 13 verse 5 says, "Keep your life free from the love of money, and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." And 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 6 through 8, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and we cannot take anything out of this world. But with food and clothing, with these we will be content." But what do you think personally? Should Christians be able to become wealthy, or is it a barrier between us and God? Let me know in the comments below.